So thanks once again for joining in. As many as can, please, would like to see your lovely faces. Bring cameras on. So welcome to session 2 of the Unmasked Diabetes Project. My name is Dayibara Orike, for those that were not here last week, and I'm a mother of 3 and a 13-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And I'm married to one husband. All right. And I'm based in Aberdeen here, and I've been here for, call it about 15 years plus, and it's been a journey, and it's not been so much of a bad journey per se. But the journey of diabetes have not been great, but now it's fine. So that's why we're here, to share the good news that it can be better. So I needed to have that confidence that it can be better. And back to the project. The project is funded by Aberdeen City Council, and I proposed the project for the community that it's going to be helpful for people having been through the journey for over 10 years. And coming out of it is a miracle. And I thought people will be blessed as well by getting to know the possibility. Because if they don't see proofs, then they will say it's not possible. But when there are proofs, you can't doubt it. And that's why I proposed the project to help people out, so that what I pass through, as much as possible, people will not go through all that process, but they could even come out of it earlier than I did. They don't have to go through it if someone else already has gone through it and has found out, a few things that could help everyone. Why should everyone suffer? I mean, it's not nice. So that's why I'm here. I also like to impact lives, which is part of the reason why I'm here. I sad to say, I lost my mom, quite early, and she was diabetic. So one of the reasons why I'm doing this is to save lives as well, because we don't want to lose loved ones around us, and I would encourage you to share with friends as well, the link, because, it may not be them, but it may be someone around them that could help with the information they're going to get from here, and that's just about it. So this week, we're going to continue from where we stopped. So I was diagnosed diabetic, just little history about myself, diabetic in 2007. 2007, while I was pregnant for my first daughter. It wasn't a nice news at all. I was told I needed to be on insulin, which I didn't have much of a choice. I had to go on insulin. And I was taking that 3 times a day. And it got to a point where I couldn't even find where to prick a needle. It was really bad, from my legs to my hands to my tummy. It wasn't great at all. Excuse me. But I had to go through the process for a couple of months, about 7 months or so. I had to do that, and you still get the sugar readings, up and down, which wasn't great. But well, thank God, babies are okay. They were all fine. And after having her, in fact, the 3 pregnancies, I had to go through gestational diabetes, which was in and out, and at some point I needed to be on monitoring at the hospital, and sometimes I was out of the hospital. So all those experiences is not necessary if we have a way out, and that's why we're here. Now, when I got out of pregnancy, like after having the baby, I was told, okay, I'll be on medication, which I continued taking metformin. At some point, they gave me another one, glimepiride, to add to it and all of that. But all of that was they were just temporal. They were just temporal. And it's not like it was taking the root cause away. Deep down my heart, I knew there has to be a way out of all of this. But what's the way out is what we're all trying to find out. And so I carried on that for years and years. There were no significant improvements. My HbA1cs were over 50. Over 50, and it wasn't great at all. Sometimes you go for these appointments, these review meetings, and the doctors tell you certain things, and you're like, seriously, that cannot be me. But you just keep having faith and just keep moving on. And about 2017 or so, when I got to can we please mute?
You can transfer host to me, Dayibara, so I can.
Yeah, I'll do that now. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Make host. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. I've done that. Right. So when I met, Dr. Daisy, that was, God's arrangement, I think, because that was where it all started to get the strength to gather myself, to get some light, to come out of this tunnel called diabetes. And that's why we're here today, to get to know more. Now, what did I do? What did I do? After I spoke with Dr. Daisy, I had to take steps, which is very important. We can come, we can hear, but if we don't take steps, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't really change anything. So I believe that we come in here, we're ready for a change, both in our lives or in lives of whoever is going to be around us. So if we're here and we're ready for a change, then that's great. Thumbs up to us, because we're going to achieve it. We're going to achieve it. So when I met her and then I started taking steps, things changed. For example, but there's something I would like to put out here now is, let me use maybe like a drug addict for an example. Not all of them out there want to be drug addicts. So not everybody wants to be diabetic. They want to come out of it, but there's something holding, they don't have that willpower. But for me, because of my faith in God, that helped me to come out, to have that willpower, to gather that strength, to take necessary steps, and I give God thanks for that. So now what happened after that? I started taking notes, I started writing, I started recording. I had my blood testing monitor. That's a very good friend. I'll call that blood testing monitor a very good friend, because it keeps you right if you know what to do. And these are part of the things you're going to learn in course of this session. Right now, I'm glad to say that my HbA1c is 38, which is not even pre-diabetic range. It's not even pre-diabetic range. So from experience, using the blood monitor, using the knowledge gained from Dr. Adeze's session, and putting things to work, very important, taking necessary steps, that has brought about the success story I'm telling today. And I know that as many as are going to put their faith in it, put their heart in it, and just determined to move on, you're going to eventually overcome this pandemic, I'll call it, of diabetes. But I know there's a way out. All right. So please, before we continue, I'm going to quickly share. I'll quickly give you a link for the last session, just so you have that to hand as well. Or maybe I'll do that at the end of the session, just so I don't distract us. I'll do it at the end of the session. But before we proceed, before Dr. Adeze comes on for her lecture for today, I would like to share with us a video. And this video is just about someone else that also took steps. Someone else that also took steps and saw changes in his life. And it's just a short video, about 10, 11 minutes. And I'm sure it's going to give you some information that you may need. So please feel free to put in your questions, whatever thoughts you may have. What are those things you would like to achieve from today's session? Are there questions from the last session you attended? Over the weeks, are there things that came to mind? What would you like to know? Because we are here to see how we can answer those questions directly. In as much as we're going to give general information, we don't mind trying to see how we could answer your specific questions as much as we can. Okay, so please feel free to send your questions either to me private chat or on the group chat, or to Dr. Daisy, and we're more than happy to look into those at some point during the session today. Right now, I'm going to share my screen where we're going to watch a short video clip about someone who took necessary steps and got great results. And I'm sure it's going to be a great blessing. So remember putting your questions as soon as you can. A few minutes now, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm hoping, hold on, let's see. I'll get this here, right? And okay. Just a few minutes and we'll be there. Here we are. Please give me a thumbs up if you can hear and if you can see the screen clearly.
It helped him bring his blood sugar from incredibly high back to nearly normal. Richard, thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we are so appreciative of you and your willingness to allow us to use you as kind of a guinea pig and to show some things to you and to others. But give us a little background. Let's start with your mom. You're like me. We both had moms with diabetes. Tell us a little bit about her situation, especially in her latter days.
And my mother lived with me for the last few years. She was alive, and she had type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
But she smoked cigarettes, and she didn't eat properly, and she didn't learn a lot of about nutrition, which would have helped her a lot.
Right.
So she ended up being a double amputee.
Okay. Where was she? Where did they cut off her leg? Was it low, high? Or?
Well, it started with just a little boo-boo on her toe. She lost her toe on one foot.
Okay.
Then, it went to gangrene. She lost her foot.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other foot, and then both legs all the way up to
Wow.
her thighs.
Must have been traumatic for her.
It was
And
very.
for you, since she
Yes.
she was living with you.
Well, that was the whole reason she moved in with me, so she'd have someone there all the time.
Okay.
And then she her kidneys failed, and she got on dialysis.
Hmm.
And then she had other problems, her gallbladder. She had
Wow.
a quadruple bypass. She had a few heart attacks.
Yeah.
And then eventually, she had a heart attack and took her life.
Yeah. So that was a rough patch in her life. Those last years. How long would that be? The last 3, 4, 5 years, or how long did that last?
I think that was about right around 5 years.
Around 5 years.
Yeah, she was 73.
So it did a real number. Diabetes did a real number on her.
It did.
And because you were living with her, she was living with you, you were learning a few things about diabetes and about, some of the problems it can cause.
Right. At that time, I wasn't diabetic, but I got to talk to her dietitian and nutritionist that came by every other day. And I learned so much about what she was supposed to do. But, us Clarks were kind of hard-headed, and she would tell me, it's my life. I want to eat quesadillas. That's what I'm going to eat. And, but she is a heavy smoker, and she didn't get any exercise in a wheelchair. Okay. So once she became a double amputee, from that point on, it went pretty fast because of her lack of movement.
So that was kind of an education for you, although at the time you didn't have diabetes. You probably assumed you never would. And so years passed, and suddenly you found yourself facing a similar situation, at least with the diagnosis of diabetes. Now, I was fascinated when you were talking to me earlier about just how you found out. Tell us a little bit about how you first began to feel like you might have a problem. You went to the doctor and what he discovered.
Well, when I was younger, I was diagnosed with hypoglycemia.
Actually, I saw a recipe in The Guardian.
I was always a junk food junkie. I was always really hyper. And in my
right
before I got diagnosed with diabetes, I had noticed that I started getting tireder. I had less energy. I didn't sleep good at night. I felt like that. Mostly it came on pretty quick too. In a matter of just a couple of weeks, I started noticing that I didn't have the energy. In the evenings I was tired. But in that last night before I went to the doctor, I felt that day, I just felt like I had no energy and I just wanted to go home and go to bed. And then I was up all night urinating.
How many times would you say you urinated?
A dozen.
Yeah,
which
is very typical of severe diabetes.
Yeah, and it wasn't little. Oh no, I went to the bathroom a lot.
Yeah,
and I hadn't drank that much.
You were discharging a lot of water and wondering where that was coming from.
Right. And then when I woke up the next morning, I felt like I hadn't slept at all.
Okay.
I was very thirsty. I was
to advertise
hungry.
Bluebell Wood.
I had no energy.
Come to Bluebell Wood.
So I knew, in the back of my mind, I knew what was going on because of my experience with my mother.
Dairy milk.
So I made that doctor's appointment with her. My sugar was over 400 when I got to the doctor.
The doctor tested you.
Yes.
And it was over 400. That is really high. That's not just a little high.
No.
In fact, you may well have been higher than your mother ever was.
Yeah.
You probably may remember, but at any rate, it was extremely high. What did the doctor say when he noticed how high you were?
Well, him and his assistant come walking in. The first thing they said to me, "How are you feeling?"
Okay.
I said, "Well, I feel a little lightheaded and maybe dizzy and loopy, and my brain's kind of foggy." He goes, "You shouldn't be walking." He said, "Your sugar's over 400." He goes, "You really should be you shouldn't be moving around like this."
Yeah.
And so they ran some tests and confirmed that I was diabetic.
Okay.
And I changed my diet immediately.
You heard the D word, which is something none of us want to hear.
Right. That's a cuss word now.
but you had had enough experience with your mom. You knew a few things to do.
Yes.
Tell us what steps you took. You said immediately you changed your diet. Tell us what steps you took along those lines.
I went home and I threw out the Bluebell ice cream, the Dr. Peppers.
Good choice. Yeah.
And I immediately just went vegan. I just, from that very day, I didn't eat anything but vegetables. I think for 3 days I ate garden salads with all the vegetables I could think of and grilled chicken breast.
Okay. Well, it wasn't quite vegan if you're eating some chicken,
Yeah,
but it was
I
close.
couldn't go all the
A
way.
lot of vegetables, though.
Yes, sir. And drinking water. I think I fasted everything except for that. And that's what I did for about a week. And in a period of, I think it was almost 2 months, I lost 50 pounds.
Wow.
You know, and then I got to talk to a nutritionist again, and I started, thinking about all the things I've learned from my mother's nutritionist, and started cutting things out of my diet. And I actually, within a month, I was feeling a lot better than I had in a long time.
Yeah.
I lost some weight. I wasn't fidgety. I had, my son even told me, Dad, you seem a lot calmer now, than you used to.
Yeah.
And I noticed that what I ate would make a big difference.
Well, yeah, and that's what we are preaching through these videos, and pretty much everything that I do related to diabetes. What you eat makes a huge difference.
It really does. I can see that.
So you next went to the doctor. I suspect your blood sugar had gone down a bit from this dietary change. What was the next time? What was the reading the next time you went to the doctor?
I didn't mention, but I immediately bought myself a glucose meter, and I monitored my...
Smart move.
Yes, every morning and every night.
Yeah.
And I tried to get it as close to 100 as I could, and I maintained it pretty well. And there was a period when I ran out of test strips and was busy and didn't test it for a while. Okay. But it had been... I didn't go back. I think I went back to him a few months later. Yeah. And my levels were in a normal range, or around 100. That's when he told me that it had to be below 130 or I'd be damaging my organs.
Yeah. So he must have been happy with what he was seeing.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, there's a lot of diabetics that are really high and they just go back to the doctor month after month, year after year, and it never really does anything. Yours made a dramatic shift.
Yes.
But you had made a dramatic dietary shift as well. And it sounds to me like the things you had learned and seen with your mother proved extremely beneficial to you.
Yes. Yeah, he made that comment that he said that he doesn't see this very often where someone makes a dramatic change like that. Yeah. And I explained to him that I had taken care of my mother and I knew the results.
Exactly.
And I saw what this can do to someone, and it can happen fast.
And it not only gave you some information about what to do, but you had motivation.
Yes.
Because you saw how much your mother had been hurt and damaged by this horrible disease.
Yeah, she suffered greatly in her last 5 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you were having the high blood sugar, before you quite knew you were diabetic, were you having any other symptoms? You mentioned feeling uncomfortable. You mentioned the frequent urination, feeling lightheaded. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. I think it's more than a month or two before that. I seem to be more easily agitated or cranky.
Yeah.
And my son lives in my rent house, which is next door.
Okay.
And so he'd always point out when I was cranky or
sons are good for that, and daughters as well.
They really are.
And wives.
And and I never really thought about it because I was always on the go and moving. I've always been real hyper. But hindsight's 20/20. I look back and see where it was showing up earlier than I recognized it, actually.
Okay. And how old were you when the diabetes showed up in your life?
57.
57. But your mom, she hadn't been diagnosed until she was much older than that. Is that right?
Yeah, she was around 63 or 64.
63 or 64, and she lived to be how old?
73.
73, but really went through some hard times.
Yeah, her last few years were tough.
So you went from 400 or in the 400s, and you were able to get it down into the low 100s.
Yep.
And to me, that's amazing. You hadn't even read my book.
Not yet.
But it sounds like you and I are on the same page in a lot of respects. We're both convinced that what you take in your mouth makes a huge difference, and that the name of the game is carbohydrate restriction.
Yes.
You don't have to eliminate carbs, but you definitely have to cut back seriously.
Yes.
And you did that. You knew enough to do that, and it put you a notch, it put you several notches higher than most diabetics, because a lot of them, they're in a fog. What kind of doctor advice had you been given? You saw this one doctor. I think you saw, a couple of other doctors?
I saw another doctor.
One other doctor.
No, once I felt like I had it under control.
Yeah.
I'm old school. I didn't go back to the doctor for almost a year.
Okay.
And I don't know what it was that caused me to go. I think I just wanted to get a follow-up. And it was probably 2 years later, I went to a different doctor at a clinic. And my A1C, he said, was just a little bit high. I don't remember my exact numbers.
Just a little high.
Just a little high.
Well, that's a lot better than when your glucose level was at 400, because if it was at 400, your A1C would have been not just a little high, but extremely high. Yeah.
And
So
my blood
you have
pressure,
done a lot of good for yourself.
yeah, and you know, I feel fortunate enough to be able to learn all this stuff through the experience I had with my mother. You know, I feel like the Lord set me up so I could attain this knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, knowledge is powerful.
Right.
Right. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that was impactful. I hope we learned a few things. You see, this young man here, this one, I'll open it to you. Or would I say young lady? This young lady, she's your friend. She'll tell you things you need to know, in addition to what we're going to tell you here. So, without taking much time, can I just quickly remind us to send in our questions and engage? We'd like to see some lovely faces on camera, please, please, please. So we could put faces to the names. And thanks to everyone who joined us after we started. Without wasting much time, I don't know if I should give us 3 minutes break or something. If you want to grab a cup of tea, coffee, something, use the toilet just for, so let's say we're going to be back by
2 minutes.
2:28. Okay, 2 minutes. Okay, 2:26. The doc says 2 minutes. We need to listen. So 2:26, please. Let's just get a cup of tea, coffee, use the toilet or something. Get yourself comfortable because we're going to go on a roller coaster soon. Catch you soon. We'll be here waiting for you. Cheers.
So all I was suggesting, Orike, was obviously the students and other observers like myself, you can introduce us and have the cameras on for that, and then make it really clear that the other participants, who are the real people the group is for, should probably keep their cameras on, because that maximizes engagement, and whereas we're just a distraction, but everybody needs to know we're here explicitly. That was my suggestion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes. So that's one of our doctors speaking, Dr. Fraser. We're glad you could join us.
Thanks for joining in.
Thank you.
Thanks
I've got some medical students. There's Hannah. Hello, Hannah.
Hello.
Hi. We've got
Thanks
Jack.
for having me.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. Hello, Jack.
Hi, guys.
Yeah. Good. Who is the other medical student? I can't remember. Is that Hermione?
Hermione.
Yeah.
Hermione. Okay. Can we see your face, please, if you don't mind?
She might have gone off to.
Okay, maybe
I
she's
think
going
she
to.
just said she was going for a coffee, I think.
She's going for a coffee.
Back,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine. Really, really great to have everyone on. Okay, we'll just wait till we start again.
And huge numbers, 25. Wow.
Yes.
Just 1 minute more and then we'll kick off.
Fraser, are you walking?
We're in the Bluebell Wood in Malta.
Oh, lovely. It's
Living the
raining here in
lifestyle
Aberdeen.
dream.
Eh?
Well, we've had our rain. It's cleared away.
Had your own
Perfect-
rain.
Perfect timing.
Good, good.
But I guess that's a message that maybe the participants, if they're happy to be on their phone, they could always be having walking meetings as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, exactly. If you can be doing something healthy while being on the webinar, why not go for a walk or something? Okay. Dayibara.
Great question from Clara.
Okay.
I'll put my video off now, shall I?
Okay, yeah.
Mute now. Right, welcome back, everyone. Hope we're ready to go, ready to roll. I can see a question in the chat box. I'll just quickly attend to that. Post delivery, were you still checking your Yes, I was still checking my sugars, although I have got to confess, I'm not good at keeping records, but I had to do it. For life, I had to do it. Like I said earlier on, part of the motivation, I lost my mom at an early age, and I'm determined to stay here and to ensure that I try to help as many as possible to stay here, and I'm sure, I believe that that's going to be happening, and just to impact lives and just help us as much as possible, so with that motivation, that's my why. That's my why. That kept me going. I see my family, I'm like, I'm going to be here. God helping me, I'm going to be here. The diabetes issue has to come to an end. So that was my why. So there are things I won't want. I don't like needles at all. I don't like, not for any, even now, as you can see, I've still got it. I still got it because I have to keep an eye on it, on things, So I have to keep an eye on things. Before now, the last HbA1c has come to 38, So the motivation, we need to keep focus on why do we want to get rid of that? Do we like it? Do we like picking our nails? Do we like taking medications? Do we like being on insulin? I don't like it. I never liked it, and I don't ever want to like it. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I kept checking it, but I was no longer on insulin. Insulin was only when I was pregnant. After the baby came out, that was me free from insulin, but not free from medication. But now I'm free. And I know you or anyone else that wants to be free will be free by the help of God and by what we're going to be learning. Knowledge, they say, is power. And that's why we're here to impact knowledge. How many intervals between your first and last or third one? Well, I had my first daughter 2008, after which the next one I had my next 2012, and then my son 2014. Actually they were a bit scared for the third pregnancy, but you know what? Miraculously, that was the neatest, more like they had no concerns at all. It was so clean. No issues, nothing. Among all of them, none had issues. But the third one, they were a bit skeptical because they were all through cesarean section. So you can imagine what I passed through. Not just diabetes, I also had to pass through a CS, and the pains after that, those that understand, will understand the pains after a cesarean section. I had to go through all that, and everything went on okay. After that, sugars were still playing up. I still had to take the tablets. But the most important thing now is I'm free, and you and anyone else can't be free. And that's why we're here. So without taking much time, I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Daisy. She's ready for us. And I hope we're ready too. Welcome, Doc. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. I can't thank you enough for being such a blessing, such an encouragement. I can never forget the day I came across to your house. I can't forget it. No way, not even in my dream. I can't forget it. And I'm really, really grateful. Please, guys, like I said in the beginning, it's about taking steps. Let's pay attention, take notes, get your questions ready, and we're going to trash things out by the help of God. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dayibara. Could you make me host, please, so I can share my screen? Thank you. Your story is always so inspiring, and what I love about it is that not only did you get yourself sorted out, you want to help others. I think that's really amazing. So thank you for organizing this and for dragging me into it. I'm really so pleased to be part of what you're doing. You're such an inspiration. Thank you so much. Okay, can I check that we can all see my screen?
Unmask diabetes.
Yeah, you can see that. Perfect. Okay, so this is week 2. We were here last week. If you were here last week, could you drop in the chat? I'm interested to know how many people came back. Just type in, I was here last week. Let me know those who were able to come back. And if you did come back, we're really grateful you joined us again. Let us know where you're listening from. Where are people listening from? We are in Aberdeen, I and Dayibara. But I know people may have tuned in from different places, so just let us know in the chat where you've come on from, please. We would like to know. Just type in, let us know where you joined us from. Okay, so this is week 2. We're doing this for 4 weeks, so we've done 2 lessons. So, well, this is the second one. Next week, Saturday, we'll be back again at 2 p.m. to continue. Okay, so my name is Dr. Adeze Ifezulike. I'm a GP here in Aberdeen. And I'm also a lifestyle medicine physician. That means I am trained to help you use your lifestyle to tackle your health issues, especially your chronic illnesses, things we call chronic illnesses. They just seem to stay with us all through life. Things like diabetes, hypertension, those sort of things. We can actually use our lifestyles to help ourselves. So I would like to know, what is the one thing about your diabetes that concerns you the most? Can we drop that in the chat, please? What is the one thing you would like to sort out about your diabetes? Please type in the chat, let me know. And the other question I'm interested in is, what is the one area you would like to work on concerning your health? Because I know not everybody here is diabetic. You may be here because your mom is and you want to know more, So let's just know, what is the one area you would like to work on your health concerning? I see in the chat, Emmanuel was here last week. Thank you for joining again. Uju was here. Ibitola is joining in from Aberdeen. Chinwe was here last week. Tone was here last week. Serenita from Aberdeen. Bibi from Aberdeen, and you were here last week, and so on. That's great. Thank you for coming back. And Ibitola wants to work on her weight. Excellent. Sandeep from Aberdeen, you are welcome. So, work on the questions, drop in the chat. Someone says her weight. What other areas would you like to work on? So, let's go to the teaching now. Last week, if you recall, for those who were here, we talked about the different types of diabetes, the type 1 and type 2. We talked about how right from the start, people tried to use the way they eat to manage their diabetes. That was always the way. It was always a dietary treatment for type 2 diabetes. But along the way, we said something interesting happened. Insulin was discovered. Yes, and so insulin led to, it was great. Hello, can you hear me okay?
This is in London.
No, let's say from this area.
Yeah, please, can you help us mute our participants, talk, please?
London.
Right, let's do that. Let's mute everyone. Mute all.
From Essex.
Okay, so that's everyone muted now. Are you okay? So we said that insulin came on board, and that was great for type 1s. But then because it came on, with it came other medications. So eventually we started using medicines to treat diabetes type 2, even though initially it was more of a dietary thing. And so we've seen, I passed us through the years, we went through step by step to see that even with the medications, diabetes doesn't get better as such. We talked about the complications of diabetes. We said how is the commonest cause for amputation of limbs, commonest cause for blindness, for kidney failure, and so on. Lots of complications with diabetes. And I gave us my personal story and the reason why I'm passionate about this, because my own grandfather was diabetic and he had to have an amputation of his limbs. And eventually he died from a diabetic coma. So these issues are dear to my heart. It's really a personal thing for me to make sure, like that Dayibara shared with us so powerfully, if we can help others prevent the same complications, then why not? So today we're continuing from insulin. Insulin is a hormone in the body, okay? Hormones are simply messengers. Let's call them chemical messengers that our bodies release, one cell releases to talk to the other cell, So these are chemical messengers. So one of them is insulin. So insulin helps our body to store food as energy. So when we eat, the food we eat is stored as glycogen. Glycogen is simply packs of sugar. So it's like sugar packed together, it's called insulin, chains of sugar, okay? So it's stored in the liver, or it could be stored, the food could be stored as body fat, okay? So insulin does that. Insulin also tells our cells to use the glucose in the blood to use that as energy. So two important functions, storage and encouraging cells to use blood sugar. Okay, so it's quite an important hormone, this insulin, and it's really important that you understand how it works because it's going to help you come on top of your diabetes. So when we have what is called diabetes, it's essentially insulin resistance is diabetes, and I'll explain that. It's a situation where the sugars are not going into the cells. Like we said, insulin helps the sugars, tells our cells to take sugar from the bloodstream and use that as energy. But when we become diabetic, it means that the sugars are no longer going into the cells the way it should do, okay? So the insulin isn't effective anymore. It's not able to do its job as well as it should. And so we have all these sugars accumulating in the in the bloodstream, and that's essentially diabetes. Can I check that my screen is moving? What can you see now, Dayibara? Can anyone see my screen? Can you hear me okay? I guess I've muted everyone and no one is able to unmute. Let's see, let's unmute a few people. I just want to be sure you can hear me okay. Okay. Just a moment, I'll check my...
Yeah, we can see your screen is showing why.
Great, okay, excellent. I don't want to rattle on and the screen isn't changing. Okay, so why is it happening? Why is it that the blood sugar isn't being controlled? Why is the sugar not going into the cells? And it's because there's no more room. We get to a situation where the cells are full of fatty, fatty material, what we call fatty liver. This fat has been deposited in the liver, in the muscles, and so on, and filled up everywhere. So there's no room. That means the body has to release more messengers, more of the insulin, to try and force the sugar into cells. Okay, follow it. I want you to really understand how this works. So insulin's job is to get the cells to take in blood sugar, but now there's no space inside the cells. So the cells can't take in any more blood sugar, and more insulin is released to try and force the sugar into the cells, okay? With time, the body begins to resist this insulin. That's why we call it insulin resistance, okay? Which is essentially diabetes. So let's have a look at what happens when we eat food. What happens to the carbohydrates we eat? Our white rice, our pasta, our bread, our pastries, our bagels, and so on. What happens to it? So when we eat food, it's absorbed in the intestine and taken to the liver to be stored as glycogen. Remember, I said glycogen is packs of sugar, okay, just sugar strung together is glycogen. So it's taken to the liver to be stored. Then any extra sugars are then used in what we call de novo lipogenesis. That is now used to make fat. So the body uses the extra sugar to make new fat, okay? These new fats are poured into the bloodstream to be taken to fat cells for storage, okay? Excess ones accumulate in the liver, causing what we call fatty liver. I don't know if you're in this forum and you've had a scan and the doctor said, oh, you've got fatty liver. So that's what's happening there. This same fat can be found in the muscles too. It can be found in the pancreas. These are essential organs in the body. So they're now being taken over by excess fat. So they can't function as well as they should be. So that's what happens to our sugars, our carbohydrates. Now let's look at what happens to the fats we eat, okay? I need you to understand the difference. So there's the carbohydrates and how the body handles that, okay? Now let's talk about the fats we eat. When we eat fats, it doesn't go straight to the liver. The fats are actually absorbed into the lymphatic system. So this is different from the bloodstream. It's absorbed into the lymphatic system, which then takes it to the fat cells for storage. So it doesn't actually cause fatty liver. So when we say fatty liver, I don't want you to think, oh, it's because I'm eating too much fat. Okay, it's really important you get the difference, okay? Fatty liver has occurred because of the previous slide, the fact that you were taking in sugars and carbohydrates. That's where the fat comes from, not from the dietary fats we eat. And this will be important when we talk about the actual meals to eat. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples that are not to do with human beings. Okay, now cows, the natural food that cows eat is grass. I'm sure we all agree with that. Cows eat grass. Okay, however, if you want to fatten your cow, if you want it to have that delicious fatty meat, that people love so much, then you actually feed the cow carbohydrates. And that's what the manufacturers do on farms, industrialized farms. They actually feed the cows corns and grains, wheat, but the natural food of cows is grass, okay? But now, because they want to achieve this fattening, they feed them carbohydrates, they feed them sugars, okay? So this happens in animals. Now look at duck. There's a picture of a duck there and geese. These birds are meant to eat, they're meant to eat things like worms, you know, or snails or seaweed. But actually, in industrial sites, they are being force-fed corn and carbohydrates. Why? To fatten them. Are you getting the trend? So what fattens people is not what fattens people is the carbohydrates, you see, and manufacturers know that, and they use that to their advantage. So they fatten these geese, their liver, to make a delicacy. Maybe you've eaten this in a restaurant. It's called foie gras. It's actually the fattened liver of the duck or geese. You know, they actually put tubes in their throat and force feed them carbohydrates to fatten their liver. So just in the same way, they've done experiments in human beings. When you overfeed people with sugary food, with snacks, they get fatty liver, they get fatty muscles. Okay, so just the same thing. And I need you to understand that, because it will help you in making your food choices, really important. Okay, so next slide. When we say that there's insulin resistance, it means the glucose can't get in as there's no more space in the cells. So the bloodstream is flooded with sugar. You follow the trend, yeah? Because the sugar isn't getting into the cells to be used. So they stay in the bloodstream. That's when we say you have diabetes, okay? So essentially, it's an overflow problem, okay? The cells are simply too full to take in the sugar. So all that stays in the bloodstream. There's an overflow problem. And that's why when you do your pinprick, you measure your blood sugar, it's saying high, high, high. You know, some people don't even get a reading. Your blood sugar is so high that the machine is just saying high. It can't even give you a figure. I don't know if you've experienced that on the chat.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
You've had that, yes. So the blood sugar is so high. So because there's an overflow, okay? Once we understand that, we can begin to look at what we can do differently, okay? So I used this analogy in the last class. I said, supposing you had a class that had too many children inside it. So the class is full of children and they're all coughing because they're coughing into each other's face, they're infecting each other, they're all coughing. So I said to us, are we going to give them cough medicine, cough syrup to take? Or are we going to reduce the number of children, cut down on the overcrowding? What makes more sense? What makes more sense? So shall we push more children into the overcrowded classroom? Because that's what we do. When your blood sugar is high, yeah, we now give you medicines or insulin. What we're trying to do is to push those sugars, to find places to slot them into your body. We're not actually solving the problem. I need you to understand that, okay? Medications don't solve the problem, and that's why you don't get better despite, we normally start with one medicine. After a while, you're not getting better, we add a second one, then we add a third one, then we add a fourth one, because we're simply not getting on top of the problem, okay? We're simply looking for ways to stuff away the sugar rather than solving the root problem. So these children in the overcrowded classroom, what should we do? We should actually reduce the number of children so that they can stop coughing into each other's face rather than just treating the cough. And I said to us last week that your raised blood sugar is simply a symptom. It's not the problem. So if your focus is on, oh, my blood sugar is raised, I have to bring it down, I have to bring it down. It's like focusing on the children coughing. Oh, these children are coughing. We have to give them cough medicine. We have to give them cough syrup. That's not the problem. It's not the cough. The cough is just a symptom. In the same way, your blood sugar is just a symptom. We want to look at the root cause so you can actually have a chance to get better. Just like Dayibara did, and she's conquered diabetes, Once you get this, you can conquer it too. So insulin resistance that's diabetes, is reversible. That's what we're trying to say. And we're hoping through this 4 series of teaching, of interacting, we can get to the point where we believe that, okay? So what should we do? Should we not stop stuffing the cells with glucose? The cells are full already, yeah? So one solution is stop giving more glucose. The cells are full. The other thing is to get rid of the extras by burning them off. That's essentially what we need to be doing to get on top of our diabetes. Okay, so I want you to remember that it's developed over a period of time. Nothing we're saying here means you need to take some drastic action immediately. You know, we just want you to have some understanding, work with your own doctors and see how you can work on things, because it's happened over time. I said to us that many people have diabetes, but they don't even know. It's something else that brings it to the attention of the doctor. You know, I was talking about the lady who was having thrush. She kept coming to us for thrush treatment. We were giving her medicine for thrush. And then one day I said to her, when she came again, I said, I think we should check you for diabetes. You know, you're having a lot of thrush. And when we checked, her blood sugar was through the roof. You know, so sometimes these things linger on and it's just found by mistake, at which time it may have caused a lot of damage already. So to work on your diabetes, it will require time and effort to reverse, okay? It's not incurable nor progressive. It's something can actually be done about it. And one thing I want to disabuse people's mind of is thinking that diabetes is a death sentence. Oh, I'm diabetic, I'm finished. That's me for life. No, okay? It doesn't have to be that way. But the question is, are you willing to put in the effort? It's the willingness to put in the effort. That's the whole thing, okay? And that's why sometimes we just give you medicine, because we can see you're not willing to make the change. So we simply add another medicine and we keep going. You come again, we add a fourth one, a fifth one, you know. But if you can have a look and think about it and see how you can make effort, that will really help. So what can you do? You can stop eating sugars, carbohydrates. We've tried to explain that those are the main class of food that contribute to your blood sugar, that contribute to this insulin resistance we're talking about, okay? You can educate yourself like Dayibara did. We had 1 or 2 meetings and then that was her. She went off, she did research, she was reading up, she educated herself and she found out that, wow, I can do this, you know? And one of the things I've done is to put up a series called the Obesity Series. It's on YouTube. If you search for it, my YouTube channel is MEP Fit Person. That's mentally, emotionally, and physically fit person channel on YouTube. When you go there, you'll see the obesity series. It's a 12-part video, you know, and by the time you finish the 12 parts, you'll be so informed, you know what to do. So educate yourself and then try fasting. The dreaded word, fasting. Remember, we said diabetes is an overflow problem, okay? So it makes sense to fast to reduce the overflow, but let's see how we can make sure we do that safely. Okay, so how does fasting work? How does fasting work? Fasting, I mean, just call it time-restricted eating. It just means that there's a time when you're not eating. If the word fasting scares you, then let's go to time-restricted eating. You know, it just means there's a period when you're not eating, that's all. Fasting reduces your insulin levels, okay? Remember, we said when you're eating, insulin comes out to give the body the command to store food. Insulin is a storage hormone, okay? And if you're storing, your body can't burn fat. You can't do both. You can't be storing and burning at the same time. So insulin says, oh, there's food, it's time to store food. So if you keep storing, there's no space anymore. You have insulin resistance, your diabetes keeps getting worse. Then you start having complications such as blindness or amputation and all the things we talked about. But when you fast, it allows your body to access its fat stores, okay? When there's no food coming in, there's no insulin, okay? And then the body gets the command to actually burn its body because it already has energy trapped in your fat cells. Your fat cells are trapped energy, but you can't use it as long as you're eating, okay? But once you're able to stop with fasting, then the body is able to begin to use up its body stores. Your blood sugar will improve. Okay, so fasting is normal. We already fast every night. Guess what? When you're sleeping, you're not eating. So that's fasting, you know. It's actually quite normal to fast. Breakfast, we say breakfast because that's the meal that breaks your fast, you see. It doesn't mean that it's the morning meal. We have taken it to mean it's the morning meal. Breakfast is any meal that breaks your fast. So if you fast till lunchtime, the meal you have at lunchtime is the meal that has broken your fast, okay? So it's actually abnormal to eat all the time. We're not meant to eat all the time. There has to be periods when we're not taking in food so that the body can do some essential repair function. And it used to be that way in the past. People didn't eat all the time, but now with easy accessibility of food, food is cheap, especially bad food. You can go into anywhere and buy 10 donuts for 69p, 10 donuts for 69p. And all that is just a load of sugar, So because food is so available and cheap, we tend to eat more often. It wasn't meant to be that way. We do need to have periods when we're not eating to allow the body to do some essential function. And one of that is to mop up the overflow. Remember, we said this is an overflow problem. So eating several small meals through the day will keep your insulin raised. Okay, that means you're continuing the insulin resistance. But when you fast, your body uses the fat stores. Okay, so it's really important to start slowly and listen to your body. We're not saying anything here that should be drastic, and we want you to work with your own doctors. And that's why we say, ensure that you can measure your blood sugar. Dayibara has shown us her glucometer. You have to be able to measure and write down your numbers, jot it down and pass on to your doctor, your GP. Say, these are my numbers. Should I continue on my medication? Do you want to adjust things? You understand? Work hand in hand with your doctors, please. Really important that you know what's happening. You're able to measure your blood sugar. So you can start by cutting out snacks. You can just start with have your 3 meals a day, but decide that in between your 3 meals, you're not having any snacks so that you allow your insulin levels to come down and use up some of the overflow sugar. Even that alone will improve your blood sugar. And then gradually, you might be able to shift your breakfast by a couple of hours at a time. So instead of having your breakfast at 8 a.m. every day, could you shift it to 10 a.m.? What you're doing is also giving your body a chance to mop up the overflow. So little changes like that can make a difference. But in whatever you're doing, you need to keep hydrated. I don't support dry fast of any sort at all. Whenever I talk about fasting, I say you've got to drink. Keep hydrated, you need to drink. I don't support dry fasting. Please, really important to keep hydrated. If you don't drink, you will lose weight. Yeah, but it's actually water weight. You're just losing water. That's not a true weight loss, okay? So keep hydrated, really important. Okay, so let's see what the next slide says. So insulin, something is blocking my way. So our key learnings from today's talk, because I would like to take questions. The key learnings are that insulin is our storage hormone, and that diabetes occurs when the body cells are no longer able to take in sugars. There's now excess sugar from mainly carbohydrates. These contribute to fatty liver, foie gras and geese, fatty beef, so this happens in all living cells. If you feed them sugars and carbohydrates, these will be converted to fat in the body, okay? And we said diabetes is an overflow problem. So fasting allows the body to mop up the overflow and restores normal functioning. Okay, I hope those are key learnings for you. Next week will be the 8th of May at 2 p.m. We'll be talking about types of fasting for treating your insulin resistance, for treating your diabetes. We'll be looking at foods to eat when you break your fast. So I've given us a hint, foods that are carbohydrates and sugary, especially refined carbohydrates. Not all carbohydrates are wrong, but if they've been refined, that means that the fiber in them has often been removed, so you just have plain carbohydrates. I say to people, do you know that white bread raises blood sugar more than table sugar? Ordinary sugar, when you have a cube of sugar, it's just the sugar you've got. But when you have bread is actually concentrated sugar. Okay, so that's what happens with these refined carbohydrates. They're concentrated sugars. The bran, the whole meal part of it has often been removed, and that's why, like in white rice, your blood sugar goes right through the roof when you take it. So we'll be looking at meals next week and fasting and so on. So I want to thank you for listening. I hope some of this made sense. We just want people to understand the background, because that helps you take ownership once you get it. So it's not just your doctor saying to you. Someone said to me, oh, since I started listening to that, I now think like a doctor. I said, that's what we want you to do. We want you to take ownership of your health. We want you to understand why we do the things we do so that you can also work in partnership with us to help your health. So, so that's the MEP Fit Person, the obesity series on YouTube. Feel free to go there, have a look at some of the videos, watch the teachings there, and I'm sure that will help. So thank you so much. And I will stop so fast so we can look at questions. Okay, Dayibara. You're muted. Still muted. We can't hear you. Oh, should I unmute you? Oh, okay.
Thank you. Wow, that was very, very insightful. Thank you so much for that time. And we've got quite a few questions here. Thanks so much for that session. I believe people have been mightily blessed by that. So we're going to quickly go into the questions. Thanks all those that sent in questions. Okay, I think another question that just arrived. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first one. Uju was asking what items to really avoid, like for her mom in Nigeria, what kind of food, you know, mom needs to avoid. That's one of her questions. She's got about 3 questions. So we'll just take Uju's questions first, and then we'll take the rest of them, please. Could you help us with that, please, Doc?
Yes, so like I said, we'll talk about food next week. But the important thing is I needed you to understand that is the carbohydrates really and the sugars, especially the added sugars. You know that when we say added sugars, we mean meals where you can sweeten, you know, you can add more sugar to it. For example, if you're taking your porridge oats, you know, you can add sugar. You understand? You have the ability to sweeten it. So those are the ones to watch. But if you're taking something like a slice of mango or pineapple, it's already sweetened. You're not going to sprinkle, you're not going to add sugars on it. You understand? So it's the added sugars your mom needs to watch. It's the sort of food she's eating. I know back home in Nigeria, there's something like pap. You know pap, cornmeal. Pap is actually just starch, it's just sugar. And we eat a lot of it back home, you know. So it's looking at those things and saying to mom, you need to eat more whole foods, you understand? So instead of eating like, for example, cornflakes is made from corn. Why don't you eat the actual corn itself? Yeah, cornflakes is refined corn. So they've refined out all the healthy things. And that's why they then have to add back vitamins. You know, a lot of these foods, the manufacturers then have to start adding, they will tell you added vitamin this, and they've had to add it back because they've refined it all out. You know, but if you eat more foods that are more the way they are naturally, whole foods, like eat a mango rather than drink mango juice, eat an apple rather than drink apple juice, you know, eat foods in their natural state, that would help. But we'll talk more about food next week.
Thanks so much, Doc. Our next question is, does diabetes result to other illness? If yes, what are they? Any pain in the body and things like that? What other illnesses associated with diabetes, please?
Okay, yes, we talked about that last week. Dayibara, can you post the link to last week's lecture so that those who missed it can watch it? Yeah, so diabetes causes a lot of, we said last week that you don't feel it, you know, that, and that's part of the deceptive thing. It's not causing you any pain, you're not feeling it, but it's doing the damage, okay? It causes kidney failure, causes blindness, causes amputation of limbs. Like I said, my grandfather had his limb amputated, you know, so it causes a lot of symptoms, even thrush. People have repeated thrush. We know what thrush is, candida infection. Just because the sugary environment, they keep having thrush. So yeah, watch last week's video. That will really help.
I've sent the link on the group, please. So please, we could take. I'd also send the link for the MEP project series, so you could just pick it up from the group as well, please. Thank you. And just final question here is, what percentage of diabetes? What is the percentage of diabetes being hereditary?
Right. Okay. So that hereditary theory, I don't buy it, to be honest. Okay. I think like my grandfather was diabetic, and if I didn't make the changes I made, I know I will be diabetic. You understand? So it looks like it runs in family simply because those families haven't known what to do.
Knowledge.
Okay. So Dayibara's mom had diabetes and died from it. But you see, she's not going to die from it. You see what I mean? So I don't buy into the hereditary thing. If you have it in your family, it might be that you haven't attended Dayibara's program to know what to do. You understand? You know, once you're equipped and you know what to do, then you can decide that that's the end of diabetes in my family. Nobody else is ever going to have it. I'm going to make sure we're all equipped not to have it again. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's quite clear. Yeah. Okay. So another question from Mrs. Ade here. It says, is there anything like age-related diabetes? Her dad got diagnosed in his 80s.
Okay. Again, last week we talked about the two types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 mainly in young people, you know, then the type 2 was thought to be mainly in older people. But we saw from the talk last week that even young people are getting type 2 diabetes now, simply because of the increasing rates of obesity. So even young people, our teenagers are so obese, so they are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Whereas in the past, it was thought to be just related to older people. Okay, so there's no age as such, you know, but oftentimes the type 2 is in older people.
Thank you very much, Doc. And then the second question from the same person is, I was in another health meeting which states we can have white rice or bread, but in small proportion, or do you suggest we avoid it totally?
Okay, that's a really good question. Okay, and the aim of today's teaching is to just give you an understanding. You make your decisions, okay? I wouldn't say not to eat it ever. You understand? You can have small amounts of white rice, but have it with lots of vegetables, because the vegetables will sort of moderate the effects of the sugar from the white rice. Okay, if you wanted to have rice, for example, and you had it in the more natural state, for example, brown rice, where the outer coat of the rice seed is still maintained. That outer coat is fiber, so it helps you when you eat the brown rice. You don't have a massive blood sugar rise like you have when you eat the white rice. So the white rice has had its outer coat removed. Okay, so for you to moderate the effects of the blood sugar from the white rice, have it with some vegetables. Cut in your lettuce, you know, your cucumber, you know, have it with some vegetables. Have a little. I wouldn't say eat lots of it, but I wouldn't say stop. I know for a lot of people, rice is a staple food. It's the main. There are some families that eat rice every day. So I'm not going to tell you to stop, but I'm giving you the understanding that this is what it's doing. So you can help yourself by making sure you don't eat a lot of it. And when you do eat it, you have it with lots of vegetables. Okay. So even your bread, you can look for wholemeal bread, for example, or whole wheat bread. So that's where the whole wheat has been used to make the bread. They haven't refined out the fiber that should protect you. Okay, so yes, bread, again, bread is a staple food. If I say don't eat bread, some people are going to come and shoot me. So I won't say stop, but you can have your bread with, make sure you have your vegetables, your lettuce on it, you know, something that would reduce the effects of the blood sugar from it.
Thanks so much, Doc. That reminds me of one of the first steps I took. When I was told about bread in Doc's house, I'm like, bread. I take like maybe 4 slices, you know, of size of bread, white. It has to be white, nicely toasted, lightly toasted, not burnt. I've got my specifics for bread. So when I was told bread is an enemy, I say, if bread is an enemy, I have to run. Because whatever it is to stay, I will do it. Whatever it is to chase diabetes out, I will do it. But Doc mentioned something which I said again. The veggies swallows up. You know, I use the veg to swallow up the carb. So I reduce the bread, and then I could put cucumber. She said cucumber, the lettuce and all that. So if I have to have a burger, if I must have a burger as a treat, I could take up the topping of the burger. So there are 2 slices, isn't it? I put the burger in between. I could remove the top one. That have reduced the carbs to a reasonable amount. And then I use the veggies, the lettuce, the cucumbers to cover up. So using that and the burger meat fills me up, and I don't miss the top bits of the burger that I took off. So that's where I was able to survive and started coming out gradually until I discovered a bread called high-low bread. Please take note, high-low bread. It's in Sainsbury's. That bread is, as in, it doesn't move your sugar, as in, whatever, however they did it, as in, it's just okay. So that was what helped me to overcome. I started with using the veggies, the cucumbers to cover up and to, you know, the green smoothie to fill up and all that. And then I discovered the high-low bread. That now helped me not to miss it that much, you know, but the rice on, I at least ran away from it for a good time before I started saying, hello, Rice. We could have a chat now. You know, I've been away for a while, but it's not like I hate you completely. And then we continue like that. So we're going to go back to the next question. Thank you so much, Doc. That's very insightful. Now, the next question from Bianca. She says she got diagnosed with diabetes. Does high blood sugar make you feel fatigued?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it does. It weighs you down. It makes you feel fatigued. And the system doesn't work well because, you know, you're not meant to have high blood sugar, you see. So that's abnormal for the body. And the man, we listened to his testimonial at the beginning. He said, you know, he used to be like, you know, tired, cranky and all that, you know, when he was diagnosed with diabetes. So it does make your system, yeah, feel fatigued.
Thanks so much. I've got a question from Clara as well. How long can the beta cells produce insulin since you're already on something like glyclazide? I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm sure you know what she's talking about, which squeezes insulin from the pancreas and sometimes causes insulin depletion.
Yeah. That's a difficult question to answer. I don't know how long it will take before your beta cells get tired, you know. So the beta cells are where the insulin comes from. Yeah. So the more blood sugar you have, the beta cells are being stimulated to produce insulin. Insulin, we need you. Come, there's lots of blood sugar. Come and sort these sugars out. So the beta cells eventually get exhausted. Okay. We also know now that with fatty pancreas, just like we have fatty liver, the fatty pancreas, the fat deposits in the pancreas can also affect the beta cells. So they're not producing insulin. And so some studies have shown that when people fast, and a lot of those fatty deposits are given a chance to be mopped out from their pancreas, the beta cells often kicks up, you know, begins to perform better and secretes insulin again. That's really interesting, to be honest, because in a lot of these people, we assume that their pancreas are dead, no beta cells, you know, they are knackered. But it's not that they're dead, it's just that they can't do their work because of all the fatty deposits. But with fasting, all that drains out, the pancreas can actually function very well. So I can't tell you how long it will take. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, hopefully it does, Clara, yeah. And then we've got a question here from Ibitola. It says, my diabetes was diagnosed with menopause. I don't really know why. Is there any connection, Doc?
What I would say is that with menopause, a lot of women gain weight, you know. People often start off quite slim. I think I was 70 kilograms when I got married or something. And I'm quite tall. So for 70 kilograms, I was just like a broomstick, you know. But over the years, with kids and so on, my weight crept up. We find that, I think the studies say most women add about 15 kg or something like that at men, you know, by the time they get to menopause. So that increase in weight, remember last week we said as obesity increases, the risk of diabetes increases. Okay, so it might be, I don't know if you've added weight, that may be just at that peak when eventually your blood sugar overflow was so bad and then it was picked up on blood test. So it might be you've added weight during menopause. Menopause may also come at a time when people are more sedentary. You know, I know a lot of women who were quite active when they were younger, but over the time, by the time they're getting to menopause, they're not as active, you know, so lack of activity also means that you might have gained weight, your system isn't functioning right. So that may all be related to that time in your life. And then you get diagnosed.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that answered the question. If not, please just private chat me or private chat Doc for that. And I've got another question here from Christy. She said, can diabetes make you have body pains?
Body pains. I can't think how. No, I can't see any connection. But when you have diabetes, it's very likely you have other problems, okay? For example, if you've added weight and become diabetic, that adding of the obesity might lead to joint pains, for example, okay? Might lead to other conditions, but not pain from just diabetes itself. However, there are situations where we find people who have had diabetes for a long time, they begin to have what we call diabetic neuropathy. That means the nerves are not working well. So they often have funny sensations in their fingers or their feet. You know, it's called diabetic neuropathy. you know, the nerves leading to these extremities, the nerves leading to your fingers or to your toes have been, how would I put it, knackered by the diabetes. So they're not functioning well. So people often have all sorts of altered sensation in their feet. I see people complaining that their feet are burning. They have a burning sensation. Others have like an electric shock sensation. That's called diabetic neuropathy. And just to say, it's really important to get your feet always checked, being diabetic. We talked about this last time. I hope that helps.
Right. Thank you so much, Doc. Please, everyone, could you click on the link on the chat box to fill in a quick survey? Just a few questions to help us do better, you know, next time, and to actually tailor things maybe to specific needs, if any.